good.
Right, okay. No, oh, right, okay. Brilliant. Over there. Lovely to meet you. Take care. Yes, we will.
Right. We're probably going to go live. You're live with the whole new screen, correct?
Yeah. Что?
Da vidimo onaj kontratek. Pomeriš, da. There's like something like in the view panel. Okay, so you can just get the screen up, hold it, and then put it on the switch so you can work offline with it, and then touch the screen and do that. So you can just hold the screen with the first slide. We can hold that slide now. Yeah, I'll go back on. HD.
Music. That's odd.
Can we keep the screen, keep it locked? So then we can leave, so we can then work on this in the background. I think we're gonna have to get to go. If we start keeping that screen, you're able to just land it. You're able to see the screen in the back as it comes up, and you can deal with the things in the car. We can move the hand. Okay, good.
Don't worry about the screen. Just have me play back.
Right, we good? Cool. Right, so you're live.
I'm live.
Cool, and is that the live feed right now?
Yeah.
Okay, Amber, when you're ready, the mic's good. Well done, Mehek. Mics are good, yeah. You're good. You happy? Cool, right.
That's a continue.
Well done, everyone.
Koja je kamera 3? Ili kako to izgleda, to je Uroš. Aha. Kamera.
Good morning and welcome to the Extreme Hangout COP28.
Focus. Camera 2, focus.
Salam alaikum.
Okay. Camera 1, hold your shots. Camera 1, on air. Give me lower third.
It's the first half day ever to host for the COP. Small amount of irony here.
Lower third. Oh, you have. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Lower third out.
I love all of you and thank you all again.
Thank you.
It is by our presence here that we can come and learn from each other, build our communities together, and then go forward and share these stories across the world and spread the messages of hope,
Camera 2 ready.
unity,
Camera 2 on air.
collaboration. We need to be courageous
Camera 1.
today more than ever before.
Bring a bit wider shot.
For this week, for next week as well. is to
Camera
make
1, hold like that.
count.
Camera 1 on air.
Bringing it to your personal lives, taking it to your careers, your work lives, your schools, your wider communities. Let's make it count together. I am now going to welcome onto the stage.
Camera 3, can you give us something wider with the audience?
My great honor to introduce
No, speaker with the audience.
new Prime Minister from the UK, Harriet
Okay, we go for camera 2, camera 2 live. Camera 1, give me 2 of them. Okay, camera 1 on Harry. Hold camera 1 on air. Give me lower third.
Ne čujem ništa.
Lower third out. Camera 2 on air. Camera 3, can you find like 3 people in the audience? Fantastic. Focus. Camera 3 ready. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1 ready. Camera 1 on air. Thank you, camera 3. Can you find another shot?
Loss of biodiversity, damage to infrastructure, conflicts, and climate migration, among others. We now know that human activities have disturbed the balance of equilibrium that holds the planet together. Design we appreciate that the planet does not belong to us, as it seems to be like 4.5 billion years and human beings are on its proxy. As looking after the working
Na nešto treba da raditi. Kažeš on air, onda je zakucan. Možeš daj nešto, use something else, camera 1.
the next generation what it
Camera 2.
depends on our actions today.
Camera 1 ready. Camera 1
But we can save our planet with determination and political will, combining science and innovation. Today I see a lot of flaring in the skies and the exploration of new oil wells.
Camera 3, hold these shots.
But our efforts
Camera 3,
must be laser focused on stopping the decline into the waters. Long ago, humans believed that the world was flat and the sun circled the earth, but we
Camera
science
2, on air.
otherwise. And now we know better.
Yes, shot number
This
2
is why
is
I
very
believe
good.
we can find
Camera 1
innovative
steady,
ways
camera 1
of
on air.
reducing greener energy and stopping the wanton destruction of our environment in the name of energy production. A few days ago, when I read the headline, the first transatlantic flight by
Once
a
again,
large
lower thirds. Lower third.
powered only by alternative fuels has landed in the US. My hope in combating this catastrophe was renewed. As children, we should always be free to question and debate the best in it. This approach is part of the mission of our friend of the following 200 global village, where children and young people are encouraged to participate in discussion to find solutions to conserve what the planet has given.
Such an interesting
Our existence
Камера 3.
depends on what we
Camera 3, can you give us another shot of the audience wider?
my attention to the
A
fashion
little bit more audience.
which changed being led by Mary Taylor, with green with
Camera 3?
Yeah, he's
often seen. It's not just an issue
about,
about
yes.
fashion
This one, this one.
environmental
Can you move a little bit on the,
the fashion
yes, a little bit more?
is said to be the world's second largest climate
Camera 3 on air.
dumping waste is unacceptable in the current climate. The impact of the fashion industry in terms of pollution, water, carbon emissions, human rights, and
Camera 1.
gender inequality
Go a bit, can you come a bit more closer?
You cannot deny that the fashion industry
Hold that one,
represents
and camera 1 on
part
air.
of our economy with a value of about 2.5 trillion pounds.
To moramo urušiti, pošaljemo ga.
Over 75
Može ova moja kamera malo da napravimo zoom, samo da pogledamo malo ovaj, jer ga po prazne stolice. Pa nekako da ga vataš od nogu prazne stolice. Mislim panel koji se već samo spremno.
and a 2048. While people equal garments, they will start 60% more
Možeš još malo kad je ovo glavu da ga
but they
Možeš malo da ideš gore da bude sve glavu na ekranu.
Postoji onaj beč na ekranu.
Furthermore, 85% go to the dog yearly, and
Meanwhile, we will go camera 3 on air.
sends a significant amount of microplastics into the ocean.
Camera 1, you can go a bit wider.
Long garbage
Camera 2
tuberculosis
on air.
dumped in the landfill every second. Approximately 60% of all material used by the fashion
Camera 1 hold like that.
from plastic.
Camera 1
Every year,
on air.
500,000 tons of microplastics are released into the ocean.
Ti ovako kombinacija
The
fina.
equivalent of 50
I sad ćemo ti ovako
billion
kombinacija.
plastic bottles. The fashion industry is
Samo navići da
Samo kad smo okačili žice, ovo je sad sve
humanity's carbon
poker
emissions.
aparat.
More than all international flights and maritime
Camera 2 on air.
kamera 3 nađe.
Camera 3.
billion cubic meters, enough to meet the demand of 5
Mislim ja
million
nisam, da.
by the fashion industry annually.
Ali je samo zbog mog stanja, ne jedem ljuto i živo meso. Try to avoid it.
Yes, we do need to fashion it, but it must be sustainable.
This is camera 1 on air. So this
Okay,
is very
yeah, this is very
interesting,
nice
yeah.
shot. Camera 3.
Or camera 3, hold camera 3 on air.
On behalf of our generation,
Camera 1 hold, camera 1 on air.
digital link to order
Ja sam jednu u postprodukciji, znači ja šatove koji mi idu tako da. Ako ti ja uskočim sa nečem,
continue this path of disruption in the name of fashion. It is time
Genial, like
of sustainability in every move. My final point is about water and sustainability, an issue very dear to the UK community.
si ti uroš na kameri? Jer možeš da uključiš ovu hidžabi ženu sa belom krvim naučarima kao close. Sedi bliže na znači levu stranu jedan štrebe ispred njega. Što bi bilo lepo pokazati lokalku. Mislim tu.
Just a second, let me go for camera 2 on air, camera 1, you can change your shot.
But that will come if we do not produce and use water sustainably.
Okay, camera 1, I think you're a bit underexposed to this. Can you open it? Okay. Camera 1 holds. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 holds. Camera 3 on air. Scratching, camera 1 hold, camera 1 on air. Prošimo vas sviđe. Camera 3 on air.
I do thank you for the opportunity
Možemo sad pogledati.
Camera 1, give me a presenter. Why this do you have? Yes, find the audience. Camera 2 on air. We don't have a sound. Prepare lower thirds for number. So camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Lower. No lower third. Sorry.
There is? There are no.
Okay. Okay, it's out. Okay, camera 1 on air.
With us to evaluate the future, built on a collective effort by our fabulous hands. Please be welcome to the stage, Paul Dickinson, founder of CDP, Fiona Maitland, Senior Advisor to Groundswell, Emma Cox, PwC's Head of Purpose,
Camera 3 on, camera 3 on air.
Sheila Bastida, founder of the Re-Ed Initiative, Ambassador of the UN Climate
Camera 2 on air.
and International spokesperson for youth advocates for climate action from the
Camera 1, can we have moderator?
Welcome to all. Thank you so much for being here today.
Moderator. Can you go, camera 1 can go on the guy on the right?
Can you put lower third for Paul?
Camera 1 on air, lower third for
Paul.
Paul.
My name is Paul Dixon. I am the founder of Big NGO.
Lower third out.
That's my life here.
We go.
I'm here to talk about that. I also have a privilege.
Okay.
Great media to young parents and representative of outraged optimism.
Camera 2 on air.
Thank you. Round of applause.
Camera 1, give us next guest is Fiona. No, camera 1 on air, lower third Fiona. Lower third out. Camera 3 always. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1 just like this, 3 persons. That background is overexposed. Okay. Camera 2 on air. Camera 2 is currently on. Camera 3 always. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Okay, give us the next. Participant, prepare it for camera 3. Hold. Camera 3 on air. Give us lower third. Out. Camera 1. Hold. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1 hold. Camera 1 on air. Who's doing sound? Who's doing sound? Camera 2 on
Exia.
hold, camera 1 on air, give a slow third.
I think it is not the right one. I think it's this another one.
Yeah, this is Xuri. Sorry.
Yeah, that one. No, this one. Malo ću ja više pratim mogu, ti malo ću pratim mogu.
Okay, camera 2 on air.
Lower thirds out. Kako se sastavio mikro urošao, skroci iz konekcije.
Camera 3, hold, camera 3, on air. Camera 1, can you open one stop? Yeah. Yes, now it's much closer to you. Okay. So camera 1 hold, camera 1 on air.
No, prepare the look.
No, camera 1. You are on air, so don't move the shot. Okay. Camera 3, hold the shot. Camera 3, on air.
Može sad priča sa ženom, pa te ne čuje. Ostala si vidi samo ja. Žena veša me popula. A možda gleda YouTube streaming. Camera 3 is still in focus. Can we put camera 1?
Camera 1 on air.
Camera 1.
Camera 2 on air.
Can somebody do the close-up of 4? Camera 1, prepare.
Camera 1 set. Camera 1 on air.
Časem i mene isprve. Možda neko kameru u pola.
Camera 3 set. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 3, you can change the audience. Camera 1 set, camera 1 on air.
Taking a little bit wider shot.
Everybody's on the phone, yeah.
Yeah, but
Camera 2 on air. Camera 3, can you go to the other person?
Yeah, like that.
Camera 1 closer. Camera 1 on air.
Okay, može biti interesantno.
Ovo nismo imali lower third.
Yes, put the lower third for her, but the right one, not the mid there.
Yeah.
X was C.
Yeah.
The names,
Yeah.
the looks of it.
Bastida.
Okay, lower third out. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. on air. Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air. Ovo je ona, Marko. Camera 2 on air.
Tu.
2 is on air. Camera 1 ready, camera 1 on air. Camera 3 set, camera 3 on air. Camera 1 set, camera 1 on air. Sad imamo traplan na traplan.
Ne, da ga vratim na kraj.
Na dve. Two people, camera 3. Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 set. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air.
Don't do anything else. Focus. Don't do anything
Camera
else.
1
Just get that sorted.
on air. Може съм дали справително.
Ne, može sad da kidam, ne?
Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 give us close up. Много дълъчки обектив, а не baš toliko dobro stativ da možete da radite smooth. Camera 1 on air.
Sad se ne može direktno, znaš da je prosto baš dok je live priča i da je zoom in.
Camera 3 set, camera 3 on air. Camera 1 you can change shot.
Oni će zašao pas na kraju da je stavimo ovaj
Can you give us camera 1 a close up again, please? Yeah. Okay. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 on air. Lower third. Lower third out. Give us this guy call yeah. Moderator, camera 1. Can you give us moderator? A bit left. Yes, yeah, okay. Hold like that. Camera 1 on air.
Lower it out.
Pull it out, yeah. Okay. Camera 3 ready. Camera 3 on air. Не заспівали. Okay. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1. Steady your shots. Camera 1 on air. And Cox lower third.
Can camera 3 find more business audience or catch that guy with a hat and the mustache? So something like that.
Lower third out.
Or the gentleman.
Camera 2 on air. Camera 1. Give me 2 persons.
I could watch it. I did watch it.
Yeah. Camera 1 on air. Okay. Camera 3, keep Kondura guy. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 set. Camera 1 on air. Ovdje samo naoštrite. Okay, camera 3 set, camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1, can we have a close-up please? Thank you. Camera 1 set. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3, can you change shot? Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 hold the shot. Camera 1 on air.
Ne.
Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 give moderator. Camera 1 hold. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1 hold. Camera 1 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 change to the next guest. Close up. Hold. Camera 1 on air, and we need a lower third Mitzi. Okay, let's go. Lower third out. Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air.
Znači najbolje live.
Yes, don't worry. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1, can we have a close up? Yeah. Thank you. Camera 1. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 hold 2 person. Camera 2 on air. Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air. Camera 1 hold, camera 1 on air. Lower third for a moderator, hold Dickinson. Lower third out. Camera 2 on air. Give me next person. Camera 1 hold, camera 1 on air. Fiona Macklin, lower third. Lower third out.
So,
Camera 2 on air. Camera 3, hold. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1, give me 2 people. No, the other 2. Yes. Moderator, yes. Okay. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3, change your shot. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1, give me close up.
Lower third. You prepare the lower thirds for
Camera 1
For
on
Fiona?
air. Lower third, Fiona. Lower third out. Camera 3, set. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1, give me 2 people again. Camera 2 on air. Camera 3, you can change your shots. Camera 1, set. Camera 1 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1, give me close up of moderator. Prepare lower third. Camera 1 on air. Lower third. Lower third out. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 hold. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 hold. Camera 1 on air. Lower third.
lower third out.
Camera 2 on air. Camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1, can you give me a moderator and the person next to it? Yes, moderator and the person next to it, yes. Or 3 persons. 3, yes, hold like that. Camera 1 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 hold.
then I'll do an
Camera 1
lead us a
on air.
close up, yeah.
Lower.
Okay.
We can already from
Oh, we have, okay.
We can keep just for the close.
Camera 2 set. Camera 3 set. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1 keep like this 3 people shots. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 ready. Camera 1 on air. Camera 3 give us another shot. Power. Sedi, na mjestu kadar neko stoliti ili sedi malo.
Možeš pojedinačne close-upe delati.
Jebe nas onaj sirko što nije došao, brate. Da. Okay. Camera 3, hold that shot. Camera 3, on air. Camera 1, close up. Camera 2, on air. Vremena, brate.
45 minuta.
Do 12. Camera 1 set, camera 1 on air.
Ako ne promene raspored. Su zakasnili fazom. 35-40 minuta u startu.
Camera 2 on air. Camera 3, can you find me somebody who is sleeping? Pick one.
Može. Ovo gospođa što je podržala glavu iza njih.
He is not sleeping, he is dead. Okay, camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Camera 1 ready, camera 1 on air.
Can you go back? There was behind the lady in the white shirt. Yes.
Camera 3 hold. Camera 3 on air. Okay, give us moderator. Camera 1, okay. Camera 1 set, camera 1 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1, go back to the Emma Fox. Yeah, thank you, Emma Fox Laboratory.
Lower turn up.
To, brate, okay. Keep camera 3 on air.
Camera 1 prepare. Camera 1 on air. Camera 2 on air. Hoćeš, čak sam i sama dugme sjesnula. Nije pila što je shot. Camera 3. Hold the shot. Yes. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. And we get camera 3 on speaker. 3. Camera 2. Camera 1, hold. Camera 1 on air for the lower thirds. Ukapirao.
Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air. Ako snimaš ove tvoje omiljene, ja? Ali nije ništa, Camera 2 on air.
Vrlo bene su. Zaboravite ostale dehidrirati.
Camera 1 on air. Sviđa mi se taj tvoj istančano retardirani ukus.
Ne, ali znaš šta je ovo interesantno? Vidiš? Znaš šta je interesantno? Viš kako ona sebi tačno ispod dike su, da se tako izrazim. Ma ne. How convenient.
Samo počet da gleda gore.
Camera 1, sorry guy.
Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 holds, camera 1 on air. Can we have a lower third for Miss Emma Cox, please? Thank you. And lower third out. Camera 2 on air, camera 1, give us Paul. Camera 1 on air. There you go, it moves right up here. Camera 2 on air. Always policy. Camera 3, hold camera 3 on air. Camera 1 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 1, give us, yes. Okay, camera 1 on air.
Lower thirds.
Camera 3.
Uroš, daj nam ove dve tvoje omiljene pevačice na dinu. Dvoplan, tak, oštro sam vidio. Okay. Camera 2 on air. Camera 3 hold, camera 3 on air. Camera 1 close up.
Delete, there's a delete.
Camera 2 on air. Camera 1 on air.
You want lower?
Lower third.
What do you want?
We
We are over delivery.
Yes, we are charging extra for lower third. Lower third out.
Yeah, but we charge lower.
Charge lower because we have lower third.
Skačeš da vidi kako nam ide.
Camera 2 on air.
Moram da se nastup, svoje nećeš iznada izdržati.
Camera 3 holds. Camera 3 on air.
Production time, right?
Camera 1.
Sound is good now.
Sound is there.
No. Sound is good now. It's going. Check it out.
Check. Yeah. Also here, production team. Why they hear us?
Some noise is coming today.
Question: why they hear us?
Noise is coming.
Yes, we're still on camera 1.
Слушай, директор, видишь, как я слышал?
Baci pogled na tvoj telefon, pa sve sam ti pogled. Camera 3 hold the shot. Camera 3 on air. Camera 2 on air. Camera 3 can you...
See. The thing is, the medicine that you've been talking about, so many scientists, even the International Energy Agency, the civil society, youth activists everywhere have been saying for years now, it's available to us. The world leaders are just not taking it. It is that equitable fossil fuel phase out. And Chie talked about the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty a little bit, but what they're essentially proposing is that we've seen how the UNFCCC and the COP processes, they've not been effective on having that fossil fuel phase out clearly. It's been 28 years, no, 29 if you count the year that hasn't happened. And still, we don't have like clear phrasing on a fossil fuel phase out. There's always some kind of loophole. And so the Fossil Fuel Treaty is now proposing a new treaty outside of this process to ensure that the fossil fuel industry can stop lobbying within the spaces where we're in, right? Like 2 days before COP, leaked documents show that COP President Al-Jaber was using the bilateral meetings on the lead up to COP to lobby for fossil fuels. So there you clearly see the lack of transparency around the global stocktake, around the NDCs, around this whole process. So what we really need to ensure is that we are creative, as Shia was saying, to not just limit ourselves to one area and one space, really ensure that we have these measures in place and make sure that we're really getting binding, concrete action. That's what
we have a person blocking the view of camera 2.
Collectively for that fossil fuel phase out, for climate finance. This is the medicine that we can take talking about for years, and it's available to us. It's just being kept away from the world.
So creative, I love the idea of creativity. I think that we change something, change something. I've had the privilege to work with you for about 2 years now, thinking about policy. Do you want to say a little bit about how you see it showing up, or how our movement can change the cycle to sort of accelerate policy deployment?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking, as she was saying,
Can I get the wider shot?
Collaborating on what we were saying about this need for better conversation. I'm really struck this COP actually on a couple of occasions, seeing and witnessing businesses coming into conversations with heads of delegation and ministers and really showing up to support and demonstrating ways of mobilisation across stakeholder businesses, with cities and health professionals together showing their appetite for a possible future. And that conversation just doesn't seem to have happened enough before. And I'm really surprised that that's not been something regular. These ministers and heads of delegation are so grateful that they're having this opportunity to talk with businesses and understand what is actually out there. And so I think what we're now starting to shift is that the right-wing movement and the fossil fuel lobbyists have been incredibly powerful at policy, and we just need to learn some of those tricks to be a bit sharper about how we communicate with policymakers, so that it needs to become a more flexible, I think slightly faster paced and faster moving collaboration between businesses, between citizens, between other actors in society, and mayors and states as well, or subnational governments that really, I think, lead the charge on a lot of policy. But bringing all of that together in a conversation to more agilely shape what is wanted by civil society, because I think it does have the huge power to then create the infrastructure within which these actors can play.
Don't be backward in coming forward. We have a few minutes just for any questions. If anybody has a hand and wants to,
Thank you. It's James Morris from PwC. It's a question mainly for Zia and Mitzi, although other people might have a view, which is, you talked about the role of youth at the negotiations and others. Negotiations, although they're sort of based on legitimacy, but that's backed by power. Like governments are able to make changes, and that's how they secure outcomes. And you talked about how you might be able to use lawfare and other mechanisms to get change if policy change happen. But first you've got to get those changes to actually happen, to get the laws changed and so on. So how do you think about how you can actually, what is the mechanism for securing the kind of negotiated outcomes or legal changes when you are speaking as youth and you don't have the power of a big global corporation or of a country or a military, all of those other things? Like how do you actually get change to happen?
So that's a really good question, because I think the underlying question there is, how do you institutionalize our generation into decision-making processes so that decisions are made with the future in mind as well, not just all of these other interests going around. And there's a lot of initiatives going on. For example, the Climate Reality Project is training hundreds of youth negotiators every year now. And Mexico, for example, has 4 youth negotiators below the age of 25 that are official negotiators with Mexico. And they're trained and they come to the negotiations, and they like, just by being young, they already have a different perspective on the world. So what would the UN look like if all the negotiators were required to be below the age of 45? Below the age of 40. Like, what would that look like, right? Like, we've been talking about presidents being too old forever, but what about the people like deciding the next 100 years? And so there's programs already happening of training youth negotiators, and they're being funded, and they're being trained by a Harvard professor that Mitzi and I, we've had talks about how do you actually make sure that our activism gets translated into policy and gets translated into actual, outcomes. And a very clear example is the advisory to the Secretary General, the Youth Advisory to the Secretary General. So the Secretary General has 7 youth advisors representing each region of the world, and I think his perspective has immensely changed ever since he had youth advisors, because he has become more and more clear on what countries need to do, and I think he's the best Secretary General we could have right now. And businesses, for example, IKEA has a youth advisory board. The World Economic Forum convened 10 youth and 10 businesses over UNGA, so that we can tell businesses what we need to see from them, and what we need to see from them is youth advisories on every single level of business as well. Because it's just a no-brainer that if you want to have a future for your business, you also need to have somebody who's thinking about that future. So those are just some of the things that we're doing, and we're really conscious of the fact that we need to institutionalize these processes. It's also really crucial that we have young people from different sectors of society, and to do that, we need to have that holistic climate education that's empowering from the very local level, so that, you can have all the consultations you want, but if your young people who are the most marginalized, your farmers, your urban poor, your workers, your fisher folk, your indigenous peoples, don't have access even to the language of the text that you're creating and you're consulting on, how are they supposed to be involved in it? And so a lot of it is like breaking down those barriers of knowledge. Yeah. Just a quick statistic, 87% of youth in the world live in the global south. So 87% of people under 30 live in the global south. What does negotiation look like? Not like 87% of people from the global south. So.
And there's a famous saying in the NGO world that the best people to break the chains are those who wear them, which is the youth. So there's the authority there. Do we have another question? Mandy? Oh, not Mandy. Oh, Mandy. There we go.
Hi, Mandy McReynolds from Workiva. I love that you articulated how finance is being incorporated into the global stock take. I'm curious from the panelists or Paul, how do we see that changing then the approach for business? Because that would also include financial investment and technology advances.
It's almost like you. How's business show up in the global stock take?
So I think there is a call for an acceleration and a multiplier effect by use of business finance across all aspects of it. So it's not just mitigation, it's into nature, it's into a just transition, it's into adaptation. And adaptation in particular, for example, is at a pitifully small level compared to where it needs to be. So I think for business, there's also a challenge though, because there's a need for the people who finance, the investors, to also understand the needs of business and for those intersections to happen better than they do at the moment. And I think some of the encouraging things that we're seeing, and maybe picking up also on kind of what will drive change here, is if business starts to now make proper transition plans and sets out what it needs and what it's going to do, then again, and publishes that, then the world can look at that and say, is that going to add up to what we need? And industry by industry, you can then make plans as to what change are you going to drive, what finance is needed, how do we drive finance into the right areas at the right time, and how do we shift the balance of risk at times to be able to be more creative. Again, it's this idea of creativity, to think about why are projects not getting financed at the moment. So how does the system itself need to change so that we accelerate different sorts of blending of finance and different types of risk from different people who are prepared to give it in different ways, so that we actually accelerate finance to where it's needed. So it's kind of not one nor the other, it's working together around a solution that I think is needed here. But it needs to happen fast, right? I think that's, and where we can invest fast. I think the other thing we haven't really talked about here, and it was great that we talked about the optimism and the creativity, is the level of innovation that we have seen and the level of projects and sort of technology that is there if we can drive that change to happen at scale. And that's the great bit about businesses, it can move really, really fast. So if you can put the right finance and business and solution together, then you can actually roll things out at much greater speed than sometimes the political processes take. And that gives me hope.
And things are going well. Companies have been reporting to the NGO that we founded for 20 years now, and President Macron yesterday launched a net zero data public utility of corporate performance, containing entirely actually data from CDP, which we founded 20 years ago, but it was very nice of Mr. Macron to launch it, and President Macron. And I think companies have developed systems to report effectively, and I think governments need to come and match them. So,
yeah, just a quick thing on finance. I think when I started in the climate space, I was not thinking about the finances of the world. Striking is free, and we just showed up in the street and demanded change. And then people are here like talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. And I think when you realize how much money there is in the world, you are shocked by the fact that the fossil fuel industry is still receiving subsidies. The fossil fuel industry receives $11 million of subsidies per minute, an equivalent of that. And, for example, Exxon gives 9% of its gross income to renewable energy or transition like development, but it's mostly carbon capture and storage that has been shown to not work at all. Out of, if you emit for a full year, the current carbon capture and storage technology only captures 26 seconds of emissions. It is so insignificant. It's actually a bit embarrassing,
What about a challenge to oil and gas companies? If they're serious about the carbon capture and storage, I think it would be great if they put on their website homepage the emissions from the product and the emissions reduced with carbon capture and storage, and then everyone would be able to see those two numbers on the homepage of Exxon and Shell.
I mean, it's going to be like this, you know what I mean? That's the thing. So I think when you realize how much money there is and how much money is not being put into adaptation and mitigation and loss and damage, then all of a sudden we need to
change where subsidies are going and make sure that all subsidies to fossil fuels are fully stopped, because that's the place where we are right now. So I think there needs to be some those type of decisions being taken, and we're not talking about it enough. But I know the global stocktake has the word phase out of fossil fuel emissions in there. So
I think the doctor doesn't pay the patient to buy cigarettes, right? Do we have any other question? Question.
No.
Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Sarah Goodenough from Climate Policy Radar. You've spoken really coherently about many of the process challenges that have currently been facing the first global stocktake. Unfortunately, we are going to go through this entire process again in 5 years' time. I'd be interested to hear from the panel, what one thing do you think would massively improve, not the outcome, but the process of this global stocktake to help improve climate action in the next 5 years?
Very constructive question. Where should we start? Who wants to go first?
Happy to go first. And thanks, Sarah. And it sounds like maybe that's also one to put back to Climate Policy Radar, which I think has done phenomenal work. This stocktake.
Climate Policy Radar, actually a gigantic database of all the climate policy in the whole world that Sarah and her colleagues have put together. Look it up, Climate Policy Radar, the missing link. You can triangulate between investment and, sorry.
If I were to say one thing, though, in response to that question, I think it is the communication around it to a broader audience. And I think within the climate space, we've understood what it's doing. I'd maybe argue we haven't necessarily all fully got behind the importance of it. But I think in terms of a process, what it really needs is to be communicated back to a wider public so that we build a movement of understanding around what these COPs can do and really enable that transparency of data and what's coming through, and really highlight the positive stories that are coming through that data as well, so that it's a balanced picture. So I think that the storytelling component of the global stocktake would be important.
Advice for climate policy, for the stocktake?
So interestingly, I literally was going to say communication, but communication in a digestible format that is relevant, accessible, and from a business standpoint, I would think that, I make a number up, 80% of business leaders don't really have a clue. Clear, not just roadmaps, right? We've done a lot of talking about roadmaps, clear, actionable, implementable plans against which we can then map, record transparently, make it real.
One thing that I've learned since coming to UN conferences, I was from COP25, COP26, COP27, COP28, is that you cannot have change happen when you're at a COP. Like, you cannot come to a COP and be like, we want this, because countries spend months drafting their positions, right? So it's like, we need to really be involved in this type of negotiations throughout the process. And it's not all of us who need to be there, but we have to have, as civil society, as businesses, as youth, as strategy, to make sure that when the drafts of the country's positions are being made, we are there. And so I think for the global stocktake, that's the thing, you know, like 5 years time, we need to be working from now. And we need to make sure that, oh my God. We need to make sure that we're not naive and we don't come to each COP and think that we're going to change the world and change the COP when we show up, because it's really a process that requires our full engagement. And that is why everything needs to be done not only through a climate lens, but through an international policy lens and also a local policy lens.
I was going to say something similar to Shie. So the global stocktake, the deadline is every 5 years. You're not supposed to work on it when the deadline's here. That's why we have all of it, right? It's also the same with the NDCs, the plans, all the targets. They're like, oh yeah, we have a target by 2030. How are we getting there? We'll find out in 2029. You know, that's not how you get things done. It's a deadline. So that means you have to be working on it right now. You have to be ensuring, and you know, like businesses do inventories like every day, right? So the global stocktake is an inventory. All of these targets are targets. That means you have to do things today. And I think, I don't know if this is something that we learned in school, and maybe the older generations have forgotten about it, that when you're given a deadline, You don't work on it the night
Don't
before,
procrastinate.
right? They tell you this all the time, like, oh, you shouldn't procrastinate. Then why are you procrastinating? You're way past the deadline. Like, you're not even close to the deadline. You don't even have an outline yet, right? So we
Let's do
really
a
need to
study group.
understand that, right? It's such a bad study group, like all of this.
We all want to get A's on our homework.
Yeah, I think we're almost at the end. We have time for another question? No, we don't. One last question? Yeah. Andrea. No, but people are online, so we actually do need to get you a mic if there is one. Yes, please. Thank you. Just go. Team.
So on the communications point that's been very well made there, coming to this COP, I think more than any other that certainly I've been to, it's felt like people have been sharpening their weapons coming in a lot more. Battle lines have been drawn much earlier, and there's kind of this equal and opposite effect of people, climate communications being ramped up and gloves coming off, being a lot more edgy, but equally we're seeing the same kind of heightening of assertion and aggressiveness of response from, I'd say, the other side. How do we thread this needle to communicate more widely, but recognizing the fact that the more assertive we get, we're going to get bigger and bigger pushback, and we're seeing some big elections next year, and there have already been some concerning things happening in elections in Europe in particular. How do we communicate this in a way that gets across the urgency without risking the balance of political movements?
I think it might is on the one hand there is a lot of awareness out there. We've seen studies that really highlight the fact that the vast majority of people now understand that climate change is a threat and we need to act on it. But then there's a sort of apathy gap, and people understand that, but they're not doing anything. So I heard the other day that 84% of Americans are concerned about climate change, but they're not voting. So I think a first response, and I think the point about elections is so important this year, is how do we make sure that we are translating our awareness into action, and that comes, I think, from more communication and unlocking the sort of hushing space that we've got ourselves into. And I do think second is communicating so much more smartly than we have been doing, the connections between climate change and other impacts like health or like jobs. We've been working with a group called Potential Energy Coalition that's done amazing studies across 23 different regions, scoping out what messages actually resonate with different individuals. And I think we just need so much more of that to understand and equip us with key messages that we can then use and share across citizens so that they really know what's coming at them. And as you were both saying earlier, I think that sort of that understanding of what climate change is connected to that impacts you on the ground is really important. And I think that's happening, which is exciting. We just need to collectively spread it more and be smarter about that messaging.
I think I'm getting a signal that we kind of have to stop now-ish. Yeah, any last, please, Nitty.
I want to say, as a youth activist, I think pushing the balance is okay. I think it's our role as youth activists specifically, and hopefully maybe more join us, to see that the balance we have now is the status quo. It's not balance, it's imbalance. So we need to change that. So if that means taking the gloves off and like pushing a few people's buttons, then we do that, right? And the crucial and important thing here is, and I hope no one from the fossil fuel industry here is here, or from the banking industry, we've done a lot of work where people who do the inside stuff in the negotiations and talking and consulting the banking industry, they'll talk to us on the outside and say, this is where they need more pressure.
Yeah.
We can't get them there. Help us. That's the crucial underground role almost that happens behind the scenes. I hope I'm not exposing anyone. And that's what we need to do. That's how you push balance and find, like that, as Fiona was saying, the being smart about it and communicating. Some people will have that, some people will have this, and understanding the ecosystem of activism and diversity of tactics that we have available to us, and really taking advantage of that, because they do that. They have bilateral meetings that are underground, and right? Like, why aren't we doing it? Let's do that more.
I mean, like, one thing I'll say is, like, the youth movement and the climate movement in general has been stages, and I think 2019, like massive protests all around the world, it was a stage of calling attention. But why did we do that? So we could be in the negotiation spaces and the business spaces, and we could be listened to and heard. So I think we need to evolve as a movement constantly and say we need to scream at world leaders on one day, and the next day we need to be sitting down with them and like, what do we do? And we need to be flexible, and that's the only way that policy will change. Like if we get a media shock and then an actual policy change, and playing that balance and being able to do that is the thing that we are trying to do as a youth movement.
Is that?
I think we need to embrace the fact that we're sitting also at the edge of huge opportunity for new products, for new services, for new ways of generating energy. And we need to encourage business to not just view this as a threat and a risk, but to view it as a way forward. And those that move first can get that advantage and make change happen, and to do that at scale and bring others with us. So actually embrace and move forward as fast as we can. And I think we're seeing that start. I'm sometimes hugely depressed and pessimistic, but at the moment I'm feeling much more optimistic that actually we can use the levers that we've got to drive us forward and pull the policy and the governments with us, and business can help lead the way.
Outrage and optimism, an excellent note to end on. You said so. But actually, I think for me, if I have the last word, I would say that something extraordinary has happened really in the last couple of years, in the last year particularly. Extreme weather has, everybody got the memo. Billions of people now understand that we have to treat this crisis like a crisis. And Shia, thank you for your reminder to us that we need to evolve as a movement and constantly be far more ambitious than we were before, because we have so much to do, and the door is a little bit open, and together we can push it through. Yeah. So thank you very much indeed to our panelists. Thank you to Extreme Hangout.
Oh, picture?
Oh.
Oh, I'm so shiny. I know. Hi.
It's a photo opportunity. I'm not wearing my
we'll
branded
have you in
goods.
the middle for.
I'm supposed to wear a Nike headband. No, I'm joking. But I'm available actually if Nike want it. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a sport.
Hello? We ready with the live stream too? Yep, is everybody ready? Yes, I know, but we need Carolina. Yes? Oh, Angus, your phone's gone to sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to come and take your seats for our next speaker today. Please, may I introduce Carolina Schwab, who is the founder of the Oceanborn Foundation, an organization incredibly close to my heart in particular. And their ultimate goal is to create a new sustainable stream of income to help to combat the climate crisis by focusing on ocean health. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Carolina.
That working? Yeah, great. Super. Well, hello. Thank you, Amber and Al, and the Extreme Dream team for putting this together. So I am Carolina Manhusen-Schwab. I'm one of the founders of the Oceanborn Foundation, and it's fantastic to be here among you and those online, and great to be in Dubai, because given our mission to protect and restore the ocean, we are right alongside the UAE's 1,318 kilometers of coastline, which, by the way, is more than the UAE's land borders with Oman and Saudi Arabia combined. So by coming here, if you're tuning in, I know you've already made the choice to be a change maker. You've already chosen to act, to protect all the things you love, and you're fully aware of all the tipping points we're heading towards, so I'm not going to tell you about those. And I'll bet that every time you talk to a person not directly in the climate space, you make the same calculation as me. How can I best activate this person in front of me without putting them off? And I think the panel before that was starting to ask that question. It's basically, how do we communicate without overwhelming and paralyzing the person in front of us that the climate crisis has gotten so severe that it now requires everyone, including that random person, to play a part? Because it's on us, it is on this community to find ways to communicate outside this community that everyone matters and everyone can now be a part of the solution. So today, I thought I'd talk about how we might unleash the power of personal choice as a component in the fight against climate change, and share with you how we're doing it at Oceanborn. And just to be clear, I am not arguing that our personal choices are enough to reduce the global carbon footprint or bring around systemic change. For that, we still need massive governmental and industry policy changes, and thank you to all of those working on this. But what I am arguing is that conversations around individual choices are a way to activate people outside the climate space, and they do create significant impact. So we're here at COP because we know the direction is a bit dismal, and it's rapidly getting bleaker. And it is hard to grasp and truly absorb the enormity that we have all played a part in this, played a part in destroying the planet by going about our normal, everyday lives. How are we to truly absorb that message, and how are we to respond to that? And I think the answer, at least what's giving us the best results, is we need to communicate hope and action, collective action, so we don't feel so small and alone. And we know collective action makes a difference because we today are not living our worst present, thanks to all the work that was done in the past. Those actions added up to give us a better today, And sometimes we forget today could be so much worse. And now, in turn, it's up to us, collective actions, to add up what tomorrow is going to look like. So just quickly, I'm going to tell you why we decided to work in the ocean space. This magnificent ocean, including the Persian Gulf that we've got just out here, it is a huge part in solving the climate change. It's roughly a 25% of the solution kind of part. It is our biggest natural carbon sink, absorbing 30% of human CO2 emissions and capturing 90% of excess heat generated by these emissions. If the ocean dies, we will die. In the words of Dr. Sylvia Earle, I'm sure you all know, no blue, no green, no water, no life. And perhaps we've gotten so used to these terms, climate change, climate crisis, that we might forget what it's really about. Climate is about life, and it's the ocean that is delivering life. So this is why I founded Oceanborn with the idea to accelerate the solutions to restore and protect our beautiful ocean teeming with life as our biggest ally against climate change and for biodiversity. The ocean also produces 50% of our oxygen because plant life in the ocean photosynthesizes just like plants do on land. In each single drop of seawater out there, in each single milliliter, there are between 200,000 and 2 million diatoms. These diatoms are tiny photosynthesizing algae. They go up and down in the ocean. They pick up carbon in their bodies and they transfer it down to the shallows of the deep, storing it away. But there are two main problems. The first, the ocean is getting more acidic as we continue to emit more carbon. And it's happening at dramatic speeds. According to the latest IPCC findings, the ocean acidification is at the highest level of the last 26,000 years. And some plants can't handle this increased acidity, which means that the ocean's ability to store carbon diminishes. If you take coral reefs, they alone generate 10% of our oxygen, and they absorb 10% of the world's CO2, and they only take up 0.0025 of the Earth's surface. Yet half of the world's coral reefs have died completely in the last 30 years, and an astonishing 99% are going to be lost before we hit the 2 degrees global warming. Coral reefs are the first of the planet's ecosystem to face extinction in the coming decades because of ocean warming and acidification. The second big problem is that the work to restore the ocean back to health is just massively underfunded. And yes, governments are unleashing a flood of capital to meet the challenge of reaching net zero. We've got the $370 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act coming out of the US. We've got potentially 1 trillion euros in public and private funds from the EU Green Deal. But to restore the ocean back to health, we need about $175 billion US dollars every year. And at the moment, the actual number that's being invested to achieve the SDG 14 goals by 2030 is about $10 billion. And if you play a little bit with the numbers, you can kind of add indirect investments and get that number to 25. But even with that, you can all see that the shortfall of investment needed is at least $150 billion every single year for the ocean alone. So Oceanborn's specific mission is to help address this funding gap by creating new streams of income, where 100% of the profits of our commercial activities are donated to initiatives that protect and restore the ocean. At Oceanborn, we've now got 4 business units. We have an investment arm that's doing everything from seed to late stage Series B. We have a B2B that does uniforms, corporate gifting, and merchandising, and we've got 2 B2C products which we use to talk to the person on the street, and believe it, one of those is actually a beer that some of you know. Ocean Beer is the name, of course. Anyway, each one of those business units, each one of those products and services, they need to do 3 things. 1, they need to start a conversation. We need to drill down that with every purchase we make, we are directly subsidizing one future over another, that there is power in our everyday decisions. 2, they need to offer an alternative that is as planet-friendly as possible so that we ensure that every step of the way through our sourcing, producing, and transporting, we are doing it with the lowest impact to planet possible. And 3, our tagline, 100% for the ocean. This is our everything. 100% of the profits are what are distributed because those products and services that we're bringing to market are the endowment for the foundation, and the ocean is its only shareholder. So in a way, if you think, we've kind of built a platform for conscientious, planet-loving customers to, on the one hand, lower their negative impact while generating a positive one. Because it is thanks to ocean-borne consumers that since 2021, when we were founded, we have dispersed over 1.5 million euros in initiatives that accelerate the path to restore the ocean to health. That's 1.5 million euros that weren't going to climate or ocean before, that have supported the greats like Sea Legacy and Oceania in their high-impact policy work. That's funds that have ensured scientists get a seat at an important negotiating tables like the INC. That's funds that support seaweed farming as a way to mitigate climate change, create habitats, and improve our water quality. And funds that have invested in technologies like Bound for Blue, working to decarbonize shipping. So that's a new income stream of 1.5 million euros going to ocean-positive initiatives that did not exist 3 years ago. My goal now is to scale. We need to raise many millions more to keep chipping away at that funding gap. And to that one cynical person in the audience, because there's always one of you, who is thinking, well, what's the impact of millions if your funding gap is 150 billion? Well, I know that I'm one of all of you, and that through us as a group, as a movement, as a collective, we are more and more people that want to start making connections between our choices and the future that these choices support. So while we need to reflect and discuss the challenges of our time, we can also share and discuss the opportunities of our time. This time, which is arguably the most critical one in human history, when the future of all life on Earth will be determined by what happens in the next few years. We know what's at stake here at COP. And looking at this room, I know you all have your stories. And together we really can make a change, and things are changing. Every single conversation, every single action that pushes back against the destruction on our planet is the next step on a necessary journey. Only 3 years ago, I was a worried, nerdy citizen reading IPCC reports from the sofa at my home. If I'm standing here today, it's because so many of you welcomed me, championed me, gave me a leg up, educated me, connected me so I could be useful. How am I not going to believe in the power of the collective? So when people start taking actions, that very first step, that very first change in a habit, even if it's only to drink that one first ocean beer, we need to champion them, because it all starts with that first step along this journey. And then you push for the next step after that. And with collective, consistent, and kind pressure, we won't accept the cynical argument that we're too small to make a difference. And with that in mind, I just want to remind us all the 3 concrete things that we should be doing and encouraging everyone to do, not just us here at COP. Everybody needs to vote. Everybody needs to think before you buy. Everybody needs to start communicating. So if I take the first one, vote, it's so obvious. But the people we elect make a difference. And countries with more than half of the world's population, that is over 4 billion people, will have elections next year. I know not all are going to be free and fair, and some arguably won't make a difference at all, but it is so that more people will vote in 2024 than in any previous year in history. In Europe, where I come from, we will have EU elections where 27 member states will elect the next parliament. We will also probably have elections in the United Kingdom, which will determine the next government and any changes in environmental policy. And then there are the US presidential elections, which can have a massive impact on a wider climate space and America's commitment to a net zero future. We need to get informed about which candidates or parties will deliver the safest measures for a livable planet. And we need to communicate before elections to the parties and the candidates that we want climate action. It's imperative that we give politicians the courage to take bold stances on climate, on life, because they will not implement an overturn of our harmful systems if they don't think they have the electorate behind them. So we gotta get loud, which is why I love those 2 girls that were on the previous panel, because they're getting loud. Second, think before you buy. Not only do the choices we make as customers make a difference, but we must change consumption behavior if we're gonna solve the climate crisis. It is a piece of the puzzle. And we all know the drill. Buy better, buy less, know your brands, be coherent, sign up to public campaigns. Consumer pressure is starting to change industries, and we need to keep that pressure on. And I'll just say it again, every consumption choice we make, be it a choice of product, service, investment, pension fund, it's all contributing to the global environmental footprint. And third, communicate.
Speaking up makes a difference. Staying positive makes a difference. And fighting apathy makes a difference. We need to tell our own positive stories to inspire others and strengthen those links between communities of like-minded people, like Extreme is doing here. So in sum, think of citizens as the new planet police. Ensure we're all voting, we're all thinking before we buy, and we all communicate. The odds might seem stacked against us, but it isn't too late. We're all here, they're incredible minds and hearts, all working in the same direction. So let's choose not to be overwhelmed by the challenge. It's actually an exciting challenge, a fight worth fighting for in which the rewards could not be any greater. And how proud we will be when we've made a difference and our ripples turn into waves. Thank you.
to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Extreme Hangout for our next session this afternoon. The construction industry. It's a major contributor to the climate and ecological emergency we face, generating a whopping 40% of annual global greenhouse emissions. So therefore, we need to rethink the current norms in construction. It is an urgent and complex challenge. The way of design, produce, operate, restore our built environment must be radically altered. Mobilizing such changes demands cross-sectoral, cooperative, and, of course, creative relationships that harness our collective agency. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you today, via my wonderful friends at the Cloisters Forum, whom I have great love and affection for, friends that I have met through the Cloisters Forum. Paul King, I welcome you to the stage, and Dr. Mei Ling Loco, who's a professor and founder of Yale School of Architecture, Kiris Aspoir, CEO and founder of Built Cubic, Simone Mangli, Executive Director of Carbon Neutral Cities, and Joy Guy, who's the head of the APN programs. Welcome you all to the stage. Let's give them a warm welcome, a round of applause. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed for the warm welcome. And warm it certainly is. You'll have to bear with me. I've literally just got off an aeroplane from the UK where it was minus something or other when I got on the plane, and when I got off it came as a bit of a shock. So bear with me if I wilt over the course of the next hour. My name's Paul King, as you just heard. I'm delighted to welcome you here, and the many thousands of people who are watching this live stream around the world, I have no doubt. And in a second, I'm going to introduce our very esteemed panel here, because we've got some brilliant expertise in the room with us today. As you've just heard, we're going to talk a bit about the built environment. It's pretty unusual for most of us to be sitting outside. Most of us spend about 90% of our life inside. So when you think about it, if you think about that is our natural habitat increasingly for people around the world, it's not surprising that we use a phenomenal amount of resources to actually create that built environment. But it is, as you just heard, pretty staggering what we're talking about. The built environment accounts for, the latest figures suggest, 42% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Also accounts for about 50% of natural resource use. It's an incredible footprint on the planet. Over the course of my short lifetime, all the trends have been going in the wrong direction. In my lifetime, atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases have increased by over 1/3, and wildlife species populations have declined by over 2/3. Incredibly depressing to think that's happened in my lifetime. And if we look ahead, the built environment is only going to get bigger. In fact, it's going to get much, much bigger. It's estimated that between now and 2050, the number of buildings around the world is going to double. So just in the next 25 years, we're going to see a doubling of the buildings around the world. We simply cannot afford to carry on building those buildings the way that we have in the past, particularly in Western Europe, North America, and other more developed parts of the world. We cannot afford to build that way. So we need some radically different solutions, and that's what we're going to be exploring on this panel. We're going to be hear from some amazing innovators, thinkers and doers about these challenges. My day job, just so that you know, is I work for an organization called Built by Nature, and we exist to promote the use of mass timber and other bio-based materials as a climate and nature solution. Not for profit, born just 2 years ago, and I just recently joined the organization. So that's where I'm coming from. But let me, more importantly, introduce our other speakers. So, immediately to my left, delighted to introduce Dr. Mei-Ling Loco, who is an assistant professor at Yale University School of Architecture and Yale Center for Ecosystems in Architecture. She's an architectural scientist, designer, and educator from Ghana and the Philippines, whose work focuses on the upcycling of agro-waste and biopolymer materials. She'll tell us a bit more about what that means in a minute. she is also the founder of Willow Technologies, focused on the research, design, and development of bio-based building materials. And Loco's work has been exhibited in some very prestigious galleries and museums right around the world. So it's a real pleasure to have you here with us. Then coming next to Kida Sasfor, who is the co-founder and CEO of Cubic. Am I pronouncing that right? Cubic. Cubic, of course it is. An environmental tech company turning hard to recycle plastic waste into low carbon and low cost buildings. Cubic's mission is to build dignity through clean and affordable living for all, a vision that gave it the honor of being Africa's Startup of the Year. Previously, he led UNICEF's open source projects with over 40 country deployments to support some of the largest and most critical programs to improve the lives of children. He's also worked for the World Bank, Accenture, and Google, so quite a range of experience. Delighted to have you, Kidis. I'm then going to come to Simone Mangili, who is the Executive Director of the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance. Simone leads CNCA's strategic development initiatives aimed to support member cities in driving innovation and setting the course for climate neutral cities around the world. He's got over 20 years of experience working across local government, non-profits, and the private sector. His passion is working with cities, stakeholders, and communities at the nexus of climate change and sustainability, with a strong commitment to social equity.